friend Ngatia, Senior Counsel. Thank you. Madam Chief Justice, my duty is to make closing submissions as I also deal with the last issue. What are the appropriate reliefs? Yes. Oh. I start by apologizing. I left out 2 members of my team, 2 lawyers who have worked very hard, Rose Thiongo and Ham Langat, Mr. Ham Langat. I think in fairness, it's good I place them on record. They have done a sterling performance, and this is part of the mentorship we should do. Madam Chief Justice, let me also start by apologizing that I did not place on record the fact that we did file written submissions on 27th August this year, and we rely on those written submissions. We took lots of time to actually develop almost a treatise on the origin of Election Act. We went to 1870 in England, where we found the first codification of the Election Act, and the subsequent development and the hesitation by apex courts in not disturbing electoral victory. I would request you, in the fullness of time, please look at it. I should also, in fairness, indicate that the authority I referred to from Ghana decided last year the Mahana decision is authority number 5 in our list of authorities. And again, this, Madam Chief Justice, let me say this because I ought to acknowledge it. Judges in Ghana quoted with approval one of your judges. Writing of this apex court are now being quoted with approval in the continent of Africa. And if I could say so, this is also because of the very vibrant advocacy by my learned friends. So if we could participate in enriching the jurisprudence in Kenya and Africa, so be it. I now go to a very brief response overview. You have a petition before you by Julia, I think is now number 7, the one about special group of people, 500,000, who allegedly were denied the right to vote. And this is what we call, not now fiction, but theory, pleading or drafting a petition on the basis of abstract principles. The so-called 500 people, not a single one of them have filed an affidavit to say because they were working for IEBC or were working in any hospital, they were deprived an opportunity to vote. In other words, this court must also try to establish some rules of engagement. Are we going to be holding this country at ransom as we process these petitions, which are, to say in very modest terms, very frivolous? One comes and says 500 people are denied an opportunity to vote, and then he gets away with it. Juria is a very good example of what states in America have now resolved to do. They do punish a pleader who files a pleading with the full knowledge that what is being pleaded is incorrect. I go to another area of so-called suppression of votes. This is another constant denominator, that the suppression of vote, because one level of votes was not held. And the question is, where is the empirical evidence that because there is no voting for a senator, then the turnout for votes for the presidency are suppressed, and suppressed in relation to only one candidate, not both candidates. My learned friends have talked about what yesterday was being called dysfunctional IEBC. It is not dysfunctional IEBC. It was a functional IEBC until 3 p.m. on 15th. On 15th August, towards 3 p.m., some commissioners were hijacked with their free will, and they opted to walk out from their brothers and sisters. There is a point that concerns me as a regular practitioner in this court, in these electoral cycles. And this is this. For how long are we going to allow our political class to advance self-interest, and to hold this country in perpetuity of uncertainty? That is something I think, Madam CJ, you now have an opportunity under Section 3 of your Act. The first fundamental in Section 3 is your true north, is supremacy of the Constitution. Your true north being the supremacy of the Constitution, and then other factor to consider is that this court is required to help us develop even a political path for this country. Those two becomes very important aids in how we deal with the political class. I'll come to that towards the end. But it is something of concern, because unless it is captured early, I do not see great hope in the way we are proceeding. Madam CJ, first and second respondents are very ordinary Kenyans, very ordinary, humble origin, and this is a country I always have thought is a country of hope and opportunity. Hope and opportunity for each and every Kenyan. A child from humble origin ought to aspire one day to be a Chief Justice of this country. A child of very humble origin ought to aspire to be a top surgeon in this country. I say all this because, in all fairness, unless we show hope and opportunity to all, then we'll be missing an important aspect of our growth. There were questions that were posed to my learned friends. Since I won't have another opportunity, allow me just a few minutes to deal with a few of them. I'll start with the first question about rejected votes. It was posed by one of the judges. Rejected votes is a point we litigated in Raila 1, that is 2013, not as a side issue, but it was the subject of a petition. In 2013, there was a petition dealing with nothing but rejected votes. Rejected votes, Madam CJ, can be the third candidate. It's very easy for rejected votes to be the third candidate. And in 2013 at Bomas, where I had the pleasure and privilege of being the chief agent for the candidate, it became quite obvious that rejected candidates will be the third candidate in that contest. And if they were to be factored, then the whole purpose of rejected votes is to bring down the victory of the candidate who would otherwise have won. So it is a point we litigated at length. Some of my learned friends, my seniors, we litigated at length, and this court held and found that what is to be considered are the valid votes cast. So in my submission, that is a point that has been dealt with. It was again repeated by the court in Ghana. Last year, they rejected the notion of considering rejected votes in the final tally. As a matter of fact, now that I remember, I'm getting a little older, I was clearer then in 2013, it is a misconception to call them rejected votes. It is actually rejected ballot, because a vote is that which is valid, which expresses a choice. So those so-called rejected votes are actually rejected ballot papers. The same holds true for spoiled ballots, and the same holds true for stray ballots. As fate would have it, you will not even know about the stray ballots at the point that the tallying is going on. I associate myself with the submissions made by my learned friends, IEBC. They are the ones who conducted the election. It is not within our place to supplement their submissions. We wish to associate ourselves with the submissions, particularly as regards how the election was conducted. I come to what is the elephant in the room, to quote Ngatia, who I have never quoted before. What is the way forward? On the one hand, you are being requested by many of my learned friends, actually all of them in unison. Is the first time I have seen so many lawyers making the same request: nullification of the election. Almost reminds me of the trial of Christ. Crucify him. Nullify the election. After nullification of the election, no solution is provided. But all they request is nullify the election. As you consider the rival position, I will request you to consider the following. In the event you nullify the election, you will effectively be rejecting the substantive truth that the majority of voters in this country express their free choice. While considering that plea of nullify the election, we shall be acceding to a very dangerous trend in this country, that presidential elections are to be held, and if I'm aggrieved, not because of any error, but I want to hold the country at ransom, I will walk to the Supreme Court and the election will be nullified. While considering that request, please also consider the far-reaching consequences that we all participated, we all experienced in 2017. That is on the one hand. On the other hand, the first and second respondent come to you with a request. The request is, voters did exercise their right. Hold them to that covenant. The covenant is they made a choice. Do allow the country to now move forward. We cannot and cannot afford election mode in perpetuity. I think I have said enough to demonstrate where my mind is. It is time for finality and stability. Finality and stability. In doing so, Madam Chief Justice, you'll be sending yet another signal to the political class. And here I am not finger-pointing anybody. As I said in 2013, what I say for this client is what I'll say for the next client who is in that class. The country does not belong to them. This country belongs to all of us. And since the country belongs to all of us, no person should consider that there is an entitlement. Considering that there is an entitlement is to engage in an illusion. That illusion ought to be replaced by reality. Reality is that it is voters who make their choice. And once voters have made their choice, let us inculcate a culture that my brothers and sisters on this side are now used to. We walk to our court, we may think the law is on our side, we may think we are entitled to victory, but we accept the verdict of the court because much as we may think we are eloquent litigators, the final word is always with the court. With those comments, may I very humbly and respectfully request this court to let this cycle come to an end so that we can get back to our business, the business of developing our country. With those remarks, I would wish to close and to donate the 30 minutes to the court because we are patriotic enough to know that it's not really in the interest of this country to engage this never-ending circle of litigation. Thank you very much. Unless you have any questions for us, that's the end of our case.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the donation and the appreciation that this time that we have is very, very tight because for us, the work actually begins when we finish all this. The bench will have questions to those submissions that have been made today, but I think there are a few who might also want to add some questions to the petitioners, especially